obviously, thanks for coming on the show. What is going on with you at the moment? Like, everyone might have seen you were doing these like show matches in China, etc. I was asking about this before the show myself. Wasn't sure myself. I wasn't sure. Was it like you actually had like an offer? You went there. If people don't know, you now live in China and you're doing a bunch of like esports work there. So what's the situation, mate? What's up?
Well, first of all, hello. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it being one of the few persons in the world that takes the best out of you, Duncan.
Okay.
Well, that's a long story. Okay. So I decided to live in China. First of all, it's to grow as a person. It's in order to look for fulfillment.
Okay.
Because I realized that the last few years, I didn't have ambition. And a man without ambition is hardly growing, I would say. So no, I didn't have any like bags promised or that kind of things.
All right.
I took my faith into my own hand. I've been invited last year in March by my current business partner because he's been building for a few years now an amateur circuit in China for Counter-Strike. So like university tournaments all over China nationwide. With national finals, and invited me to one of these events. So yes, I did play show matches, but now those events are pretty much like mine because, as I mentioned, we are partners. So the main business is to develop the Chinese Counter-Strike when it comes to events, when it comes to improving the overall level. I mean, it's surprisingly good in China.
Okay.
I know that we didn't have a lot of Chinese team like being over the roof and performing really well on a long term. But our goal is to definitely with that amateur circuit is to scout the new players, obviously, and give them opportunity to play a tournament. This is a huge investment, because we play in arena. They play in arena. They have a cash prize and. Obviously, my main thing here on the vision of the public is doing content creation. So I have my own contract and streaming platform, which is TikTok in China. So I'm making content. I keep doing content in Europe. I want my operation to keep running in Europe. I have a team in Europe, which I try to connect both of the content together. I sometimes make dedicated content for Europe, obviously. I have ideas for podcasts, obviously, as you do, and vlogging more in general, because nobody actually knows China outside of the social media. So you don't know China. I like to walk on the shadow as well. I like to be a little bit aware of, people don't know what I'm doing, and I'm enjoying the fact that people don't know what I'm doing. It's actually really relieving, and I learn a lot of things because now I'm, let's say, a little bit on top of the industry. When you're a player, you're like you're in the chain, like you're a product, right? So now I'm more interested into when you want to build what we are aiming to build. Well, you need to talk to the biggest entities of the game and the industry, and that's really interesting because these negotiations, it's reaching out. So I think my biggest strength today is my eager to grow as a person and learn new things, and my network, obviously, because I have a pretty good network, and with my reputation as well. My reputation remains important in order to make good business partnerships and serious business partnerships as well. So I kind of like that, to diversify, because when I stick to one thing, I'm bored at it. I get bored pretty easily. And the good thing about doing many things in the same time is that, okay, I'm committed to everything I do at 100%. I want everything I do to work, but I'm not scared of failing anymore, Because, my stream, yesterday I had like, let's say 15,000 viewers. Today I have 5,000 viewers. It's okay, it's no big deal. Let's check what happened, what I can do better. But on the side, I have so much more things going on that it's also a really good way to grow as a person, because it's a way to deal with your emotions much better as well,
Okay.
So that's pretty vague, but let's say that I'm an ambassador for Counter-Strike in China.
No, by the way, that's what's funny is I was immediately thinking when you were saying that. Like, actually, essentially, you're like one of those religious Christians that goes around trying to convert people to Christianity. You're showing people what's wonderful about Counter-Strike. And by the way, you have to be one of the best people for that. Because I often tell people, Kenny, one thing people don't understand about CS2 that was quite unique is there's like a certain amount of fame that people from your era got that I don't feel like's even actually like splashed over to the others. Like, I'll give you an example, Kenny. A lot of people were really shocked when they had these recent events in like China, like they had the Perfect World Major, for example, and they had like the Blast ones in Singapore, I know. And when they had these events, right, people and the EWC, people were shocked that like every fan there knew Nico, was like chanting Nico's name. But then, for example, maybe everyone doesn't chant like Monacy's name, who's a better player right now. So, but what people don't know, Kenny, I always tell people is your era, like the sort of like early CS:GO era of like Fnatic and Envious and Titan, and I always tell people those players are like the most famous in all of CS esports, even to this day. Like I always give my example of like you and Scream or like Pasha. Like you weren't like, that's not the same as Simple and fucking Zemo or whatever, but if you guys go to an event now in like India or China, I bet you have loads of people recognize you, right? You guys are like super famous, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and that's a good point because they don't. Well, for example, the Chinese people, they really they don't have a team nationwide to cheer for, so they really like focus to the players,
right?
And they really like entertaining players,
right?
So you can guess that I have a really good and solid fan base in China and still today. So is Nico, Monesi, Donk, but I'm still among the, let's say, the most liked players, I would say. They take the fun level to the next step, you know. And from an outside perspective, when people don't know gaming, it's really good for the industry to have people put at the same level as like football players, NBA players, and so on. You know, so I think Asia is definitely a really strong actor of the scene. Which is why I believe that it's a really key area of the world to develop in order to make our game even bigger. Especially that China, Valorant, like any other region in the world, start to be a bigger game, obviously. And China has a really good team. They won the VCT last year, so it's really important for us to okay, Valorant is a good game. You have a good team. But CS is the master game, you know.
Exactly.
So it's really important to invest properly, you know, because there is that analogy that I do about myself when I talk about me coming to China. But this is an analogy that will work with the business aspect of how China is known for having significant financial resources. But somehow you don't really have a lot of good tournaments, you don't really have a lot of good infrastructures and opportunities for the players. So let's say that you have lands of opportunities, so you have two ways to deal with it. Either you burn the lands and you leave, or you do whatever you want, but you burn the lands, or you use the lands to expand more lands. And that's what I found with my partner. We are really like completing each other, you know, and he's using his resources to grow the scene, you know, like make sure that, look, there is something to do, let's do it properly, you know, like invest into it and grow it, you know, not like just like do your tournaments with like small resources and bigger profits, you know. That's not the goal. And I think that's the kind of things that have been done way too many times. And I think it's really important to grow instead of just like take what you have to take and leave, you know?
Yeah. But by the way, I can already see you. I've been thinking about this topic. I've never knew you to be such a reflective individual. One thing I would just say is this, Kenny, and then we'll get into the episode, which is, I actually think it's quite cool. That's the reason why, though. As I said, like, the thing I thought about the fame, I thought this was just like, maybe it's like a cynical thing, it was just not the only offer you've got left or something. But like, what's funny is, it sounds like, as you say, you've chosen it because it's like a challenge. Like, you're going somewhere new, trying something new, which is kind of cool because I know what you mean. Like, put it this way, when you did like that like mini comeback in Falcons, I was like, is this real though? Like, surely as soon as they do badly, you're just going to go, I don't give a fuck anymore. Like, if you couldn't be bothered practicing when you were like the third best team in the world, like, you're probably not going to practice when the team's like the 20th. So I imagine at the end of CSGO, you were sort of stuck, right? It was like, is the option just keep trying to do comebacks at CSGO, or do I, you know, what do I do? So it sounds like you're trying to find what your next path is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, I realized that I was really good back in the wall, you know? So I was like, okay, now you're gonna put yourself with your back against the wall every single day. So I wanted to get dropped in the jungle. You know, China is it's a lot of really smart, educated people, and it's really difficult to make your way into that market.
Yeah.
You know, so I was like, this is really difficult, and I was really conditioning myself for that. You know, and that's what I needed in order to grow. Once again, the goal is to fulfill myself before anything else. And there will always be people saying that I do this for money or whatever, you know, but there is something that they don't know or they don't realize that wherever I go, I can make money, first of all. And second of all is that I did turn down a big offer in Europe to do what I wanted to do in China, you know.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Go on.
I read the HLTV article about that you wanting to create just a big Chinese, just regular event. I guess I'm just curious more of what's been working for you guys. Like you talked about streaming on, I assume, well, I actually don't know what the streaming platform is. I remember you said Chinese TikTok. So like Douyin over there is like, what's the combination of things like the in-person events versus streaming versus the TikTok equivalent platform? Do you guys have any idea about like what's actually bringing in the most sort of people to get interested in the space?
Yeah, I mean, once again, the idea is to build from scratch. So we have that amateur circuit where I got to invite Nico Simple during this year, last year also, last year. So that brings visibility. People are really happy to be seeing the people that they don't get to see often, you know, because, they don't travel to Asia that much for tournaments or so on. So they don't get to see them, right? So the popularity of the tournaments raised the people. Like there was 8,000 people attending events physically, and there was like over 100,000 of people watching on stream, you know? So I believe that we don't have in Europe, we don't have the visibility of the views that China brings to the game, right? But it's actually ridiculous, you know? And I did connect us with the biggest actors of events in Europe. But, you know, like this is a difficult business because you're literally you're fighting with other cities, other countries, you know. Sometimes the subsidies are much higher in that country, much higher in the conditions are better here and stuff. So I just believe that bringing more tournaments in China will start bringing more hype to the game, because the hype is still really high when it comes to CS. Yes, it's still one of the biggest games in China, right? FPS game. But having more tournaments will definitely drive the people to like it more, because at the end of the day, seeing a tournament online from the platforms and seeing a tournament in real life is really different, because CS remains the most entertaining game in all esports, you know. And as soon as the people sees that, like the Shanghai Major, for example, was full every single days, you know, even during the weekdays, people are walking. Even during the weekdays, every seats were sold. So that's a good way to include China into the ecosystem in a consistent way by building a tournament. And we mentioned Katowice in the East because we also want to make a tournament that is prestigious at some point. We know it's a long process. We know that the first year of Katowice was not as successful as the second one, as the third one and the fourth one, and so on. It's a long process, but the idea is to make sure that CS remains the biggest game in China, because China, alongside CIS region and Brazil, are the biggest region in the world when it comes to CS.
Oh, especially because for viewership and stuff. Yeah, of course, yeah.
Because of those regions, CS is growing. Right. And I want to make sure that it's not consistent. It just keeps going up, you know? So that's the way we want to do it. So by events, by inviting players, obviously, for the amateur circuit, including the amateur circuit in something a little bit more significant, you know, because with the newest like Valve regulations, it got really hard for a new tournament organizer to show up and like be like we don't want to be concurrent of anyone, you know, like we're aware that the three main actors are really ahead and they're really great, but you just want to have a spot into all of this. The schedule is really packed also, you know. I think the schedule may be a little bit too packed in some ways, but I kind of understand why it is so packed, because, you know, like at the end of the day, CS remains an industry, a big industry, growing industry that is, and it's a business, you know. So everybody has to sustain that business.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.